What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Johnny. Back in here, one more reaction video, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we got another one from the legend, Mr. Thomas Sowell. And this one is about old people. It's titled, Are Old People Dangerous? I'm not really sure what context they're talking about, are old people dangerous? But we're going to check this video out and see what it's talking about. And then you can leave your comments below. As I like to say, we're not nearly as divided as the mainstream media makes it seem. We're just spirits encased in human flesh trying to figure out this thing called life. So if you rock with the video, please share it far and wide.
The New York Times recently ran a front-page story dripping with sympathy for a multiple murderer who is now very old and who, on some days, cannot remember why he is in prison.
Really?
His victims, however, cannot remember anything on any days. There are also photographs of him and other prisoners. One prisoner is described as having a disease that brings mental deterioration. Another, with his legs amputated, is shown trying to catch a baseball on his knees. Yet another prisoner is shown in a wheelchair. All sorts of heart-tugging stories are told about elderly inmates who are succumbing to various diseases and infirmities of age. There are, however, no stories at all about their victims, or their victims' widows or orphans, or how tough their lives have been. Although the Times runs this as a news story, it is in effect a long editorial on how terrible it is to keep these prisoners locked up years after they have ceased to be dangerous to society. This one-sided presentation includes the views of the American Civil Liberties Union and prison officials who would like to use the space taken up by these elderly prisoners. But there is not one word from a victim or from police who have had to deal with these killers. Bias shades off into propaganda when the Times quotes ACLU figures that there are more than 30,000 prisoners who are 50 or older in the nation's prisons. Note that we started out with stories about people so old and infirm that they are supposedly no danger to anyone. Now we get statistics that are not about such people at all, but about people 50 or older.
You know, personally, I go back and forth on empathy for people that are in jail. Just because I got maybe 50 friends right now that are in jail for murder or some type of violent crime. And also my dad was in and out of jail a lot when I was a kid. Like a lot. But I've never been to jail personally, like not once. And my dad told me if I didn't want to go to jail, just don't do stupid stuff, be respectful. And then if I didn't like the way a situation was going, just talk to him. But I can remember picking him up from jail. I can remember going down to the courtroom and sitting there and seeing him come out the back in the orange jumpsuit, handcuffed with everybody. So as a kid, my perspective was I couldn't stay in jail. I did not like cops, any of that. And even when my friends started getting locked up, you know, when you're young, it's free such and such, and you put them on T-shirts and all that. But as a mature man with children, you know, the people that are in jail did some type of crime. Regardless of the environment they come from or the lack of education or the lack of resources they had around them, they still did something to another human. So I don't know what the proper amount of time is for a proper crime. Like I got a friend, Casanova. He set his baby mom on fire and stabbed her to death. You know, like how should he get out of jail when he turns 60? I got a friend, Sean, who set his other friend up and shot him and killed him over a PlayStation. You know, should he get out of jail when he gets 50 or 60 years old? I don't know, because these are my guys and I love them. Played basketball with them, was in middle school, had sleepovers, all that. But the violent crimes they did, I can't say just because they were good to me that when they turn 65, they deserve to get out of jail. I don't know.
I don't know what would make the New York Times or the American Civil Liberties Union suggest that people cease to be dangerous at 50. I am older than that, and I fired a rifle and a shotgun just a few days ago. We old codgers can still pull a trigger. One of the murderers featured in the Times' own story was 74 years old when he began serving his life sentence. What a shame he did not realize how harmless he was after age 50. The propaganda game of talking about one thing and citing statistics about something else has been used in many other contexts. Stories about violence against women often begin with terrible individual tragedies and then move on to numbers about abuse, which include such things as a husband's stomping out of the room after an argument. Statistics about serious violence against women are less than 1/10 as large as the numbers that are thrown around in the media by feminist activists.
And something else that feminist activists leave out is the relationship with the highest rate of domestic violence are lesbian relationships.
Moreover, serious violence against men is about twice as high. In technique as well as in bias, the Times story about criminals is classic liberal propaganda for one of their mascot groups. But this is not something peculiar to the New York Times. You can find the same kinds of stories in the Washington Post or the Los Angeles Times, or on any of the leading television networks. Criminals are just one of the groups adopted as mascots of the media. All sorts of parasites and predators have been displayed as if they were ocelots or other exotic creatures that adorn the world of the anointed. The deeper question is, why is it necessary for the anointed to have human mascots? And why do they choose the kind of people that they do? Whoever is condemned by society at large, criminals, vagrants, illegal aliens, AIDS carriers, etc., are eligible to become mascots of the anointed, symbols of their superior wisdom and
And
virtue.
that's super true. Like, the world loves rap music. If you go back 20 years, they had, what was that, Hank Williams or somebody on the NFL? The NBA wasn't rap, and now the whole world loves rap. And they push vote Democrat, vote Democrat. And then the whole, what, in Atlanta, all them people was Democrat, and they just took YSL down. And then she said within the next 60 days, there's going to be 2 more rappers that's coming down. And then when all those rappers get in jail for those drug charges and murder charges that the whole world loves to listen to, then they're going to be saying criminal justice reform and get them out of jail. It's a big old cycle. Put their music on the air, let them talk about drugs, guns, and murder. And then when they go to jail, we say get them out of jail. They get out of jail, they do it again, and we wash, rinse, repeat. Just pay attention.
By
BMF,
lavishing concern on those we condemn, the anointed become morally one up on the rest.
like they locked Meech up and the whole BMF up just to make movies about it right now and get paid off of it. It's so comical, and we got to pay attention to what's going on in this capitalist society. You can benefit from it, or you can keep being the puppet in it. The choice is yours.
Rest of us. Is that important? To some, it is paramount. A quarter of a century before the Gettysburg Address, Abraham Lincoln said in a speech in Springfield, Illinois, that the greatest danger to the future of the United States would come not from foreign enemies, but from that class of people which thirsts and burns for distinction. These people could not find that distinction in supporting and maintaining an edifice that has been erected by others, according to Lincoln. In other words, there is not nearly as much ego satisfaction in building up this country as in tearing it down. For example, a Stanford law student involved in the prisoners' rights movement said recently, "It's precisely because prisoners are viewed as the castaways of our society. That's what draws me to them even more." She wants to know why a person can't function in this society, what it is about this society. Our schools and colleges are today turning out more and more people like this, who are taught to despise American
Right.
society and to boost their own egos by blaming that society for sins that are common among human beings around the world. Journalism is just one of the professions being prostituted to this self-indulgence.
And for people who say we want to study the criminals, that's why I say, where do people grow up? Because if you grew up in a neighborhood with criminals, you don't need to study them. You know what type of people they are. You know what they're capable of. You know what they do. They said the neighborhood drug dealer was shot on my front porch. His name was Nate. Called him Yellow Boy. He was shot by Leroy. Stayed across the street. Was my friend's stepdaddy. Booby, actually. Yeah, Booby's stepdaddy Leroy shot Nate on my front porch. And came to my house. What was it? Probably like a week later and said, "Hey man, I'm sorry for shooting at your house." Promise. Not lying. And that's just one of the instances of growing up in this environment. I don't need to go study that. I was in it. So They make everything look sexy, but that's not what it really is. But hey, keep being able to fool the masses. But I got a quote a Booker T. Washington quote. It's one of my favorite. And it goes off of a little bit of what Abraham Lincoln said. About not wanting to help America prosper, but to tear it down. Let me make that a little bigger for the people in the back. I ain't forgot about y'all. There is another, mind you, this guy was an actual slave. Let's not forget that. He wasn't one of them people talking about, I suffered for 400 years. Now, bro really was in the trenches. There is another class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into a settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose their grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. How accurate is that in 2022? I say like a lot of the TV shows that are popular are modern day minstrel shows. Even complaining about the prison population, everything that we talk about can be prevented. Tupac had Thug Life wrote across his stomach, and everybody loved Pac. But Thug Life stood for the hate you give little infants fucks everybody. Because if you don't protect these children, and if you don't teach them how to behave and how to act and how to treat people, they going to grow up and be some terrorists. And I say that because if you got a garden, you could take care of it and it could be beautiful, or it's going to be weeds everywhere. And if I don't have my daddy around, and I didn't have a great father, I'm talking he was an alcoholic in and out of jail, but he still was a man. And he still corrected me when I made my mistakes. He couldn't fix everything. I still got tattoos, still got baby mamas, but I still had that insight of when I was at my lowest from making my mistakes. It was like, damn, daddy did say this, daddy did say that. But if I never had any positive advice ever, like the OGs told me bad advice, radio told me bad advice, movies told me bad advice. The only small positive things I heard about being a productive man in society came from my father. And we pretend that single motherhood is the norm, that men don't want to raise their children. So we keep the grievances in the world of what's going on instead of saying, how do we fix the problem? And the problem is strong family units. No, I'm sorry, not the problem, but the solution. The solution is a strong family unit, a mom and a daddy. But until we have a strong family unit and our young boys and young girls got to keep growing up in broken environments, we're going to keep having broken adults who end up in jail sometimes, who end up in bad relationships. They always say your relationships expose your childhood trauma. Let me know what y'all think in the video, though. Do y'all think people should get out of jail when they get older? I don't know. Like I said, man, I like Sean. But actually, when I talked to him last time, I asked him, what was it like being in jail? And he said it was like a high school reunion. That's like sad to hear. You say you get to play basketball with the people you grew up with. You lift weights with the people you grew up with. But it was disheartening to hear from him that it's like a high school reunion in jail. Thank God I ain't in there. Don't ever want to be. Never plan to be. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, we out. Peace.